I always thought that when I finally made it, when I signed that contract, sold my company, and saw 8 zeros on the screen, my parents would be proud. I didn't expect tears or speeches. Just a, well done, would have been enough. But instead, they looked me in the eye and said something I will never forget. Your sister deserves this more than you do. They didn't ask. They stated it like it was a fact. Chloe, who never worked a full-time job. Chloe, who borrowed money and never paid it back. Chloe, who always had a safety net, me. And suddenly, my 12 million didn't feel like an achievement. It felt like a target. I should have walked away right then. But I didn't. Not yet. Because what I did next wasn't just about money. It was about finally choosing myself. Growing up, I used to think I was imagining it. The way my mom's eyes lit up when Chloe walked into a room, but barely flickered when I entered. The way my dad would praise her for the smallest things. Look at that drawing. Isn't she gifted? While my achievements hung quietly on the fridge until they were yellowed and curled at the edges. Chloe was the golden child. Beautiful, charming, always knowing just what to say. I was dependable. The kid who cleaned up after dinner without being asked and who got straight A's without anyone checking. When I was 12, I won a regional math competition. I came home clutching that trophy, heart pounding, waiting for someone to say they were proud. Mom barely looked up from the stove. Are you hungry? She asked. Dad glanced over. Don't forget to let your sister have a turn at the computer. She has homework too. That night, Chloe got ice cream for finally passing her algebra quiz. No one mentioned my trophy again. I'm not telling you this to complain. I'm telling you this because patterns matter. And this one, it never changed. Chloe got her first car at 16. I saved up for mine with part-time jobs. She dropped out of college. My parents paid off her debt. I graduated with honors. They sent a card. At one point, I started wondering if maybe that's just how love works. Maybe some kids are easy to love, and others have to earn it. So I did everything I could to earn it. I worked harder, smiled more, kept my disappointments quiet and my dreams quieter. I didn't want to make waves. I just wanted to be enough. But no matter how high I climbed, Chloe was always standing on a platform built by our parents, higher, shinier, and somehow more deserving. Even as adults, things didn't change. She'd run into financial trouble, and suddenly I'd get a call. Liam, could you help your sister out? She's in a rough patch. It was never a question. It was always an expectation. And like a fool, I always said yes, because somewhere deep down, I still believed that one day, they'd finally see me. The thing about being invisible is, it makes you a great observer. While Chloe was the center of every conversation, I watched, I listened, I learned. I learned how people moved, what made them tick, and what problems they ignored until someone solved them for them. And slowly, I realized I had a talent, not for showmanship like Chloe, but for building, for solving things quietly. After college, while my parents begged me to just get a safe government job, I was sketching ideas for a platform that could streamline freelance hiring, something lean, efficient, and transparent. I built it in my cramped apartment between shifts at a tech repair shop. No investors, no loans, just late nights, instant noodles, and obsession. It didn't take off overnight. I failed 3 times, slept in my car once, skipped family holidays, not that anyone noticed. Chloe would post selfies at resorts, and Mom would gush, she deserves a break. No one asked why I wasn't there. But I kept 29. I landed a partnership with a mid-sized firm. At 31, we hit our first million in revenue. At 32, we were bought out by a major player for $12 million. When the deal closed, I sat in silence for a long time. No champagne, no celebration. Just me, alone in that same apartment, staring at the screen. I thought about calling my parents, telling them the news, telling them I made it. But a voice in my head whispered, they'll find a way to make this about her too. Still, I wanted to believe things could be different now. Maybe success could reset the balance. Maybe now they'd finally say the words I'd waited my whole life to hear, we're proud of you. So I flew home, booked a nice restaurant, invited the whole family, even offered to pay for everything, down to the last glass of wine. The night started out warm enough. Hugs, congratulations, Chloe, asking if I could recommend my branding guy. Then came dessert. My mom leaned across the table and said, we were just talking the other day. Your sister has been through so much. It would be nice if she could finally get the support she deserves. My father nodded. You've got more than enough, son. Maybe you could set something aside for her. A trust fund, perhaps. I laughed. At first, I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke, but they weren't smiling. And just like that, every year of silence, every ignored birthday, every call that only came when they needed something, came rushing back. They didn't see me. They saw my money. And once again, it wasn't mine. It was hers. I should have stood up and walked out right then. But I didn't. Maybe I was still that little boy at the dinner table, praying someone would finally acknowledge without conditions. So instead, I asked calmly, what exactly are you suggesting? Mom gave me that patient, condescending smile she always reserved for when she thought I was being difficult. Not everything, Liam. Of course not. but you could give her a share. She's still trying to find her path. She's 35, I said. Dad cleared his throat. She's had it harder than you. You were always the smart one. She struggled. And yet I was the one who worked 3 jobs and slept in a car to get here. I snapped, my voice rising despite myself. Chloe finally spoke, her voice syrupy sweet. Liam, no one's taken anything from you. They're just saying you have a lot, and I don't. Isn't that what family's for? I looked at her. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect performance. I remembered the time she borrowed a 15,000 from me to open a boutique that shut down in 6 months. I never saw a cent back. No apology, either. And now she wanted more. But what hit me hardest wasn't her entitlement. It was the certainty in her eyes. Like this was owed to her. Like I was selfish for even questioning it. I turned to my parents. What if I said no? The silence was deafening. Then Dad said, well, we'd be disappointed. Disappointed. Not in the years I sacrificed. Not in the nights I chose work over rest, building something from nothing. No. Disappointed that I wouldn't let them divide my life's work like birthday cake. Something snapped inside me. Let me make one thing clear, I said slowly, deliberately. This money wasn't handed to me. No one helped. No one even believed in me. And now that it's real, now that it's tangible, suddenly you all feel entitled to it. You're overreacting, Mom said, voice sharp. No, I said. I'm finally reacting. I stood up, tossed my napkin on the table. Thank you for coming. The dinner's on me. But that's all you're getting. Chloe's smile vanished. Seriously. I nodded. Dead serious. I walked out without looking back. But as I stepped into the night air, heart racing, I knew something irreversible had happened. It wasn't just a dinner. It was a reckoning. The moment I realized the people who should have protected me had only ever seen me as a resource. And now, they knew I wasn't theirs to control anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in the hotel room, staring at the ceiling, still hearing their voices echo in my head. She's been through so much. You've got more than enough. We'd be disappointed. Not once did they ask how I was doing. Not once did they say they were proud of me. Just numbers. Just what they thought I owed. The next morning, I got a text from my mom. We didn't mean to upset you. Can we meet for coffee? A part of me almost didn't reply. But the other part, the one still craving closure, said yes. We met at a quiet cafe. Chloe was already there, sipping some overpriced lat like nothing had happened. Dad came too, this time silent and unreadable. Mom got straight to the point. Liam, we understand you're upset. But you have to understand that we're a family. Families support each other. We just want what's fair. Fair, that word again. Fair would have been treating me like a son, not a savings account, I said. She frowned. Now you're being dramatic. No, I said, my voice steady. Now I'm being honest. I turned to Chloe. Do you remember the boutique loan? $15,000. You said you'd pay me back in 6 months. She blinked. That was years ago. I was in a bad place. And yet, you were in Greece the month after it closed, with a new designer bag. She scoffed. Why are you bringing that up now? Because I'm done pretending it didn't happen. I'm done pretending that me giving and you taking was ever okay. Silence. Tight. Tense. Like a storm ready to split the sky. Then I said it. I've set up a trust, a legal one. My entire payout, $12 million, is now under the management of a private foundation. Their faces froze. It will fund scholarships for underprivileged students, mental health startups, and housing for foster youth. Every cent will go toward building futures. Chloe blinked rapidly. You're giving it all away. Not all. I'm drawing a salary for my work as director. But none of it is yours. Not anymore. My dad finally spoke. So you're cutting us off. I met his gaze. No, I'm drawing a line. A permanent one. He shook his head. We raised you. No, you tolerated me. You raised Chloe. My mom's voice trembled now. After all we did. This is how you repay us. Repay. I looked her straight in the eye. You don't raise a child expecting repayment. You love them. Support them. You see them. You didn't do that. And I'm done apologizing for becoming someone without your permission. Chloe stood up, furious now. You'll regret this. When you're old and alone. I smiled. Better alone with dignity than surrounded by people who only show up with empty hands and open palms. I left again, but this time I wasn't shaking. I wasn't second-guessing. This time, I had drawn my line, and for once it was on my terms. 3 days passed. No calls, no texts. I thought maybe they'd given up, finally accepted that the bank was closed, and the lesser child had walked off the ledger. But I was wrong. On the 4th day, I got a knock on my condo door. I opened it to find Chloe standing there, sunglasses on despite the gray sky, holding a manila envelope and wearing the fakest smile I'd ever seen. Can we talk? I almost closed the door, but curiosity made me step aside. She walked in like she owned the place, as she always did, tossed her purse on my counter, sat without being invited. This isn't like you, she began. You've always been the nice one, the reliable one. What happened to that guy? A woke up. I replied. She slid the envelope across the table. Then maybe this will bring him back. I opened it. Inside were copies of old text messages I'd sent her, some offering to cover her rent, others saying I'd loan her funds for her wellness studio idea. All innocent. All generous. But with a clever lawyer's twist, she'd made them look like formal business investments. I showed these to an attorney, she said smoothly. They believe you made verbal commitments. If I pursue this, it could qualify as an oral contract. I stared at her. You're threatening to sue me, she shrugged. Not sure. Just ask for what's fair. Mom and Dad agree it's reasonable. There was that word again, fair. This wasn't about fairness. This was about power, about punishing me for breaking the unspoken family rule. You give, we take. You stay silent, but not anymore. I leaned back, let out a short breath, then looked her dead in the eye. Go ahead, I said. Take it to court. She blinked. You think I'm bluffing? She asked. No, I said. I think you're desperate. Because you don't know how to survive without someone cleaning up after you. Her expression hardened. No, I said, rising to open the door. But you are, at least in my life. She scoffed and left with a slam. I locked the door behind her, not just literally but spiritually. That night, I sat alone in the quiet of my living room, lit only by the city's reflection on my windows. And for the first time in years, I let myself feel it. Not anger, not grief, relief. They had shown me exactly who they were, and I had finally stopped begging them to be anything else. The next morning, I contacted my lawyer and made everything airtight. The trust, the foundation, my will. I even added a clause ensuring that in the event of my death, no funds could ever be redirected to any biological relative. I was done being their investment plan. A week later, I got a final message from my mother. We're heartbroken. You've turned your back on your family. I hope you find peace, Liam. You clearly need help. I didn't respond. Instead, I forwarded it to my therapist and said, progress. Because that was what it was. Not cruelty, not rebellion, freedom. You see, the real turning point wasn't me standing up to them. It wasn't cutting off the money or locking the door behind Chloe. It was this realizing I never needed their validation to begin with. I had been chasing a version of love that was conditional, transactional, and hollow. I spent years trying to be enough for people who couldn't see past their own disappointment that I didn't turn out exactly like her. But I'm not Chloe. I'm Liam, and the life I've built, it's mine. Built from late nights, self-belief, and quiet resilience. And if they can't celebrate it with me, then they don't deserve to sit at my table. I thought that after Chloe's visit, things would quiet down. But I underestimated how persistent guilt tripping can be when people lose control over you. First came the messages from distant relatives. Your mom's been crying nonstop. Chloe's devastated. She never wanted things to escalate. You're tearing the family apart over money. Money. That's what they still thought this was about. No one asked about the years of silence, the unbalanced affection, or the hundreds of little moments where I was made to feel like a backup plan. No one cared about the nights I cried alone after yet another ignored accomplishment. What mattered to them was the checkbook I had just closed. A week later, I got a phone call from my dad. I let it ring. Then he called again and again. Finally, I answered, more out of curiosity than hope. His voice was calm, calculated. Liam, listen, I understand emotions got heated. But let's be adults about this. Chloe may have pushed too far, but you also overreacted. I didn't reply. Your foundation idea, it's noble. But why not set aside a portion for the family? Not just Chloe. Your mother and I are getting older. Medical bills aren't cheap. There it was. The shift from guilt to obligation. From you hurt us to you owe us. I took a deep breath. Dad, when I was sleeping in my car 5 years ago, did you ever think to call me? Silence. When I missed Christmas 3 years in a row, did anyone ask where I was? He sighed. You always said you were busy. No, I cut in. I said I was struggling. You just chose not to hear it. Another pause. We're your family, Liam. That doesn't change. That's exactly the problem, I said. You think family means unlimited withdrawals from someone's life. But I'm not a bank. I'm not your backup fund. And I'm not your son for convenience. I could feel him bristle on the other end. So that's it. You're walking away. No, I said. I'm walking forward. He hung up without another word. That was the last time we spoke. A few days later, I spoke at a youth entrepreneurship summit. I stood on stage, sharing my journey, not just the startup grind but the personal one. The invisible kid who became the CEO no one expected. The son who learned that being loyal to yourself sometimes means disappointing others. After the event, a teenage girl came up to me. Her voice was soft, nervous. My parents always compare me to my brother. He's perfect. I just wanted to say your story made me feel seen. I smiled. Then I've already won more than 12 million I ever could. Because that's what this was about. Not money, not revenge, respect, and not the kind handed out by people who once called you a burden. But the kind you give yourself when you finally stop auditioning for love that's conditional. It's strange how quiet your life becomes when you stop trying to earn love that was never really offered. There was a time when silence from my parents would eat me alive, when an unanswered message or a forgotten birthday left a hollow in my chest for days. But now, silence feels different. It feels like peace. After the summit, I moved cities. Nothing dramatic, just a clean slate. A modest condo near a lake, somewhere slower, where no one knew my last name or who my sister was. I spent my mornings walking by the water with a coffee in hand and no buzzing phone demanding more of me. In the afternoons, I dove into the foundation, interviewing students, meeting local educators, building something that felt real. For the first time, I wasn't building to prove anything. Not to my father, not to my mother, not even to Chloe, only to myself, and maybe to a kid out there like I once was, trying to be seen. There were tough days, of course. Habits of guilt don't die quietly. Some mornings I'd still wonder, should I have handled it differently? Should I have tried harder to fix things? But then I'd remember, you can't fix what's never been broken in your eyes, only in theirs. They never saw the cracks because they never looked at me closely enough to notice. I kept a photo in my desk drawer, one of me at 18, holding my acceptance letter to university. In the background, no one's clapping, no one's smiling. Just me, standing alone at the kitchen counter, grinning into a timer-activated camera. It used to make me sad. Now it makes me proud. That boy became a man who broke a cycle, who chose to live without conditional approval, who chose to stop giving to those who only ever took. I started mentoring, not because I had to, but because it mattered. I saw pieces of myself in the quiet, overlooked ones. The ones who didn't have star child energy but had something rare: consistency, grit, and kindness no one clapped for. And I told every one of them the same thing. You don't have to shrink to fit into a family's expectations. You can grow into someone bigger, and they'll either meet you there, or they'll stay behind. I didn't need applause. I didn't need their blessing. What I needed, what I finally gave myself, was permission. To walk away, to start over, and to be whole without them. I used to think choosing yourself was selfish, that walking away from your family, even when they hurt you, made you the villain in their version of the story. And maybe to them, I am. Maybe I always will be. But here's what I've learned. There is a difference between family and obligation, between love and leverage, between sacrifice and self-erasure. My parents believed loyalty meant compliance, that to love them meant handing over what I built, without question. Chloe believed she deserved my success because she had failed more publicly, more dramatically. But I've stopped negotiating with that narrative. I don't owe my past self more suffering. I don't owe my future to people who never celebrated my present. What I owe is truth, and the truth is I didn't walk away from family. I walked away from a dynamic that told me I would only be loved if I gave everything and asked for nothing. And in that moment, when I stood up, when I drew that line, when I said, no, without guilt, I chose myself. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but for peace. And you know what? It was the best decision I ever made.